Welcome to Design Your Life with Reverend Kevin Ross and friends from Unity Southeast Church in Kansas City, Missouri. Join us for the next paradigm-shifting hour as we explore distinctions for becoming a person of purpose, power, passion, peace, and prosperity. Call in with your questions and comments for real-time coaching and conversation committed to inspiring and empowering you to design and live the life of your dreams. And now, it's your turn to start living the designer life with your host, the Reverend Kevin Kitrell Ross.
I sang my song. I know it won't be long for faith to take me where I'm gonna be.
Welcome to Design Your Life with Kevin Ross and friends, where we gather every Wednesday to share practical distinctions, live real-time coaching, and introduce you to people who will inspire and empower you to design and live the life of your dreams. I'm your host, Reverend Kevin Ross, Senior Minister of Unity Southeast Church. My friends call me Rev Kev, and so can you. I'm on a mission to awaken each person to live a life of purpose, passion, power, and prosperity. So if you're ready to answer your life's highest calling, pull up a chair, turn up your speakers, pick up your phone, and call in. Let's have a conversation that could make the rest of your life the best of your life. Well, you know what? Friends, it is the best of times in our nation. We have so much to celebrate. There's so many wonderful opportunities going on. None of us can ignore the recent election and inaugural ceremony of the 44th President of the United States. But not only that, there's a wave taking place in our country that has allowed this great accomplishment to take place in our lifetime. And part of the wave maker, one of the wave makers in our nation, is on our show today, and I want to share a little bit about him so that we can get you connected into his energy, and we're going to get started right after that. Michael Bernard Beckwith is a world-renowned visionary and the founder and spiritual director of the Agape International Spiritual Center in Santa Monica, California. He's a featured teacher in the hit movie The Secret, and he is the author of the best-selling new book, Spiritual Liberation. And on January 30th, the world premiere of his new movie, Spiritual Liberation, takes place, and he's just getting warmed up. He's received numerous awards. He's been in multiple films. He's known as a teacher and a guru to millions across the nation, and he is, best of all, my friend. Let's welcome to Design Your Life the Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith. Welcome, Reverend Michael.
And hello there, Rev Kev. Life is good on this end.
I know it is. Let me start first with the obvious question. You were at the inauguration. What was that like?
Well, you know, Kev, my God, the enthusiasm, the love, and the joy that was in the air was actually palpable. Mm-hmm. As you know, there were no arrests made in Washington, D.C. and the surrounding areas during that particular time. There seemed to be a convergence around these ideals and ideas that have been projected upon our 44th president, and people were so into these ideas of peace and global citizenship and sustainability and all the things that he's representing, that it was like a big love fest. It was a love fest. There was, imagine a couple of million people, and no arguments, tremendous patience, even though there was congestion and traffic jams, and
it was freezing, I understand.
And the weather, it was quite cold, but there was just not only Washington D.C. but the entire world was in celebration. All of the balls that I attended and the different events that I participated in and the different events that my choir sang at.
I was so impressed, by the way, to see your choir there, because I really think that the Agape International Choir, it gives us a visual of what this emerging paradigm looks like.
Absolutely, and that was our intergenerational choir. We had individuals from 7 to 70 in the choir or older. We had we had our teen choir involved. We had our children's choir, young people's choir, and our adult choir, and we've just formed an intergenerational choir that, of course, performed on the Oprah show with Will I Am and Larry King Live and the Neighborhood Ball and the Green Ball and Ariana Huffington's Ball. I mean, they were singing all over the town.
And I followed some of those events, and it was wonderful. I have to say that I got the hookup. I had one of those, oh, my God, Kevin, if you've got a suit, you get on the plane and be here. But I had done so much traveling, Michael, that I couldn't get a kitchen pass from the wife. She wanted to share the experience together at home. So I have to admit I had to do some breathing and some meditation, and I had to have all the principles that day to bring me back. But nevertheless, it was a rich experience with my wife and daughter.
Well, you followed what Barack Obama said. He told everyone to stay at home and to celebrate in their own neighborhoods, which millions of people did around the world.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if we could have fit not one more person there, Reverend.
Wow. What do you think the spiritual significance of this moment in history is?
Well, there's a number of levels of significance there. One, you have a man of color, that is the President of the United States, mm-hmm. which represents an evolutionary shift in consciousness for not only our nation, but also the entire planet. Because for the next 4 to 8 years, you're going to be able to see stereotypes broken down about African Americans and their family and their children, stereotypes that have been instigated and expressed by our media for many years about what it is to be a man of color. And so here, peering into this man's life and how he'll do business and speak and et cetera, you'll be able to see that it's not stereotypical as we see on the television all the time. And so that's going to assist people in breaking free from their limited concepts as to who we are, which will, of course, open up people releasing prejudice, from other individuals as well, whether it be Mexicans, whether it be Puerto Ricans, whether it be
Sure.
gay people,
Sure.
or whatever. I think it's going to assist in that. And then I think of what he is standing for.
Yes.
Because when he speaks, even though he is an American and he speaks as a great cheerleader for the possibilities of America, he doesn't leave the globe out.
That's right.
He doesn't leave the planet out.
Yeah, this was the first time that an American president, certainly in an inaugural address, addressed the Muslim world. He not only talked to the Muslim world, but he talked about Hindus and
Right.
non-believers in his address. I mean, it was so...
He was inclusive.
Inclusive, yes.
And
yes.
so I think that proffers the possibility of people beginning to see themselves beyond their national identities. Mm-hmm. And as I was speaking a little bit on Sunday, beginning to see what we have more in common than what seems to separate us. So people, I can imagine people having conversations like, hey, where you from? Hey, I was born on planet Earth. You were too? Oh, my God, I was born on Earth, too. What part of the Earth were you born on? Oh, I was born on the Western Hemisphere. Oh, I was born on the Northern Hemisphere. Yeah. Oh, my God, isn't that something? We're both Earthlings, and we're both spiritual beings.
Yeah.
So the context for a conversation and dialogue will begin with what unites us rather than what separates us.
Exactly. Well, you are participating in the groundswell of collective consciousness, really teeing it up with your work and Agape International Spiritual Center. Tell our listeners a little bit about Agape, how it came to be, and why it's so special.
Well, Agape has now been in existence in this form for a little over 22 years. November 1986 was the beginning of our first service we had there, and I found that 22 years ago, it's hard to believe that over 22 years has passed by when you're doing something that you love. Mm-hmm. And it's a tremendous spiritual community that carries with it rich diversity. The full demographics of the world is there at Agape, not only the demographics of the United States, but we have individuals from all over the world that attend and are regular members of the community. And it's, of course, based upon the New Thought, Ageless Wisdom principles that we teach here at Unity and Science of Mind and all of the other New Thought entities. Mm-hmm. And the emphasis is on, of course, each and every individual becoming their best self, waking up to the infinite possibilities within themselves and becoming a beneficial presence on the planet. And so when you walk in there, you're walking into what some people call the United Nations of spiritual communities.
Yes, I would agree.
Because everyone is represented.
And at the heart of that is this unconditional love that's permeating the place, which is what agape means.
Right. From the very beginning, I wanted to have a name of the community that would represent a quality of God. Mm-hmm. And so unconditional love, the agape love, is what our foundation is. And we know that agape love is not something that can be done mentally. It is something that you grow into in consciousness. Mm-hmm. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Called it the love of God operating in the human heart, which is where I was inspired as a young man around that concept and around the word agape. Was one of Dr. King's famous speeches around unconditional love, in answering a question as to how he could love individuals that hated him and love individuals that would beat on him and sick dogs on him and the civil rights workers. And he spoke about the different kinds of love. Mm-hmm. Said that, of course, agape, being the highest form of love, was the love of God operating in the human heart. And you don't necessarily like a person that's doing evil or like what an individual does when they call you bad names, but you can rise in consciousness and you can love that individual because God made them and God loves them. And this is what we're aspiring to be about, that kind of love that Jesus talked about, the kind of love that Gandhi talked about, and the kind of love that Dr. King talked about, and make it real, not just a concept, but through our affirmative prayer and our meditation and our study and our fellowship and our sacred service, really grow into that kind of love, and so that we become really the next stage of human evolution, examples of that.
We're talking with Michael Beckwith. He is the founder and spiritual director of the Agape International Spiritual Center. He's also the author of the new best-selling book, Spiritual Liberation, Fulfilling Your Soul's Potential. You can find out more about all that he's got going on at www.agapelive.com. That's www.agapelive.com. Stay tuned. When we come back, we'll have more with Reverend Michael Beckwith.
When life gets hard,
serving spiritual seekers around the world. Unity FM.
This program is brought to you in part by Unity Southeast Church in Kansas City, Missouri. Online at www.unitysoutheast.org.
Step inside my light to embrace the infinite.
Sure, you consider yourself spiritual, but do you live an absolute principle every day? Reverend Ellen Debenport wants to talk with you about those down-to-earth decisions that may or may not reflect your deepest truth. If you really believe that your thoughts create your world, if you really know that every human has God within, will your life be different and better? Talk with Ellen live every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern on Absolute Living, putting principles into action. Only on Unity FM, the voice of an awakening world.
You're listening to Unity FM, the voice of an awakening world.
You're listening to Design Your Life with Reverend Kevin Ross and friends. Call in with your questions and comments for real-time coaching and conversation committed to inspiring and empowering you to design and live the life of your dreams. Call us now, toll-free, at 1-888-346-9194. We now return to Design Your Life.
'Cause the universe just wants me to say it.
Welcome back to Design Your Life with Kevin Ross and friends. We are here talking with my guest, the Reverend Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith. He is the author of the new best-selling book, Spiritual Liberation, Fulfilling Your Soul's Potential. And Reverend Michael, let me just say to you, I have been immensely enjoying The book, I've been teaching it as a series at Unity Southeast. They are gobbling it up. I've seen it available all over the place, even at our Unity headquarters, and so it's being celebrated. And every week on this show, I give what's called a designer life distinction, and I'm going to actually defer to you, and I'll set it up this way. There is a distinction, and I love this. There's a distinction between improvement, change, and transformation. Can you break it down for us? The distinction between improvement, change, and transformation.
Absolutely. When we hear about improvement, I think one of the examples I may have used was, you may improve a cereal box, you may improve, some small ingredient, but you're really not making any major transformation in the product that you are delivering. And so in our own life, oftentimes people are operating from a consciousness of self-improvement, and they're seeking to do some kind of cosmetic on top of their personality or some lesser identity, when in fact, real transformation is when you come in contact with that part of you that doesn't need anything and isn't missing anything, and that begins to express, then your life begins to transform in a very powerful and monumental way. Oftentimes people get stuck in trying to improve themselves, and what they're doing is improving a false identity, a fictional identity. And what do I mean by that? Something that is transitory. For instance, people have the belief that they are the son or the daughter of their parents, and that's their identity. Or they have the belief that they are a wife or a husband, or they're an employer or they're an employee, when in fact, those are small identities. Those are transitory identities. And when major transformation takes place in consciousness and we come in contact with who we really are, then those lesser identities are fueled and funded with our real identity, and there's real transformation. Oftentimes people will just try to fix up their personality in order to fit in, rather than, and call that improvement, rather than discover their real nature in being and be transformed by the real renewing of their mind and their heart.
What I loved, and I was sharing with my congregation Sunday, because they're just nuances, improvement, adding something to oneself or removing something from oneself to seem better. Change, which it's not permanent because you can always change back.
Right. There's not necessarily a change of consciousness. Sometimes change can happen with willpower.
Yes.
You see, a person will use willpower and they'll say, I'm going to change something in my life, some kind of defect that I have in my personality or my being. And then when the condition is not quite right or when it's difficult, they can't really maintain that particular change because it wasn't really done from the inside out. It was done from the outside in through willpower. But when transformation occurs, and there's an expansion of your perception into a greater vision of who you are, then that change, that transformation is permanent, you see. There's no going back to the lesser paradigm.
Yeah, and you say transformation, this is in the book, page 29. Transformation, it includes change, but change does not include transformation. In other words, change has its limits since it's from the human will, while transformation is limitless.
Absolutely.
Since it stems from an evolving, discovery, and expression of the authentic self.
Absolutely.
Ooh, I love it. You talked about kicking open that door of transformation. You said, watch out because lightning is going to strike you when you do that. Why is that going to happen when you go down this path?
Well, when you go down that path, you're surprised at the revelations and the insights and the way your life begins to shift. And it's not real transformation unless it surprises you. Mm-hmm. In other words, you can visualize all you want about how you want your life to be, and that's a sweet and it's a wonderful practice. But when the road of transformation is taken, and you really offer yourself up to be transformed by the renewing of your mind, your limited paradigm can't even conceive of what's trying to emerge through you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it shocks you as to the gifts, the talents, the capacities, the powers that are within you, and it shocks you as to the limitless open doors that are available for you to express your being. You see, because on some level, we still want to control our life. We still want to control the outcome. But at the level of real meaningful transformation, you don't control anything. You yield to something that's bigger than you.
Absolutely. So is this what occurred for you in that dream that you have that opened you up to this awareness of love, beauty?
Absolutely. When that happened for me.
And tell us a little bit about it, because maybe not everyone has yet to read the book yet, I say, or the new movie, by the way, Spiritual Liberation, which you can get more information at www.agapelive.com. Tell them a little bit about the dream and how this concept of love, beauty emerged.
Well, I'll tell you, it was actually more than a dream. It was a lucid dream. So I was very conscious in this dream state. And, I was attending college at the time, USC, and I was having a number of experiences at this time that I would probably, at that time, I was labeling them pathological, because I was having visions, and I was seeing things and hearing voices and having all manner of different kinds of spiritual phenomena occur. And it culminated with this particular a dream state in which I was killed and stabbed in my heart, and the pain was physically excruciating as well as mentally, emotionally. And I had physical pain in my body, my physical body. And when I woke up from that death experience, I could see that we were surrounded by this beauty that was beyond anything that I could ever describe, in everything, animate and inanimate objects glowing with this luminosity, this beauty, this life, just beyond what my mind had projected onto life. Life itself, just beauty. And the love that penetrated my heart and soul was so unconditional. It was as if I was the only being in the universe, and God was totally in love with me, and beyond anything I'd ever experienced. And so at that moment, and for a long period of time in my life, I just referred to the presence of God as love, beauty. It seemed to encapsulate that particular experience, just a total love, total beauty. And that is what's real in our moments of deepest contemplation and meditation and prayer and spiritual insight and spiritual realization. We see the way God sees, that there's just a beauty that's untouched, a love that's unmatched. And though we project onto life our limited perception of what we think life is, without those filters, we will see that we are surrounded by love and beauty and a living intelligence. And that moment in my life has been the foundation piece.
Would you say that is when you transformed?
I was transformed. I tell you, when I woke up, I never could get back in the box that I had been previously living in. That perception, that paradigm was shattered, and my whole life became about the adventure of discovering and embodying greater dimensions of my own being. And that fire is still here now. That same fire that I had back then is the same fire that I wake up with now, to have a greater discovery and expression of my real nature and being.
Wow. And I think that is what has caused this explosion everywhere. The love energy that you've shared was contagious. You and Ricky, in coming together, and Ricky Byers Beckwith is Dr. Michael's wife. They come together and they produce something beautiful in their writings, and then her gift of music, the two of them harmonizing. They've created something. I was introduced to this special song when sitting out in Cancun, Mexico, with Ricky Byers Beckwith. We were just talking, and she was humming this tune, and she shared it later with the audience. And for me, it's the soundtrack. It's the soundtrack of the soul, and what we all need to be humming to and beaming with. And it was so beautiful, Michael, that when my daughter Angelina Maria was being born, the moment she was literally coming into the world, I wanted her to be surrounded in an environment of love, beauty, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So we played this song. Listen to this special song by Reverend Michael Beckwith, Bernard Beckwith, and Ricky Byers Beckwith, Love. Stay tuned. You were just listening to Ricky Byers Beckwith. That was Love. We're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be right back.
When life gets hard, still wanna knock it down.
Serving spiritual seekers around the world. Unity FM.
This program is brought to you in part by Unity Southeast Church in Kansas City, Missouri. Online at www.unitysoutheast.org.
To step inside my light, to embrace the infinite.
What exactly is spiritual social action? What makes it different than social action? What are other people doing? How can I make a difference? What does this have to do with church? Join Reverend Deborah Olive and Kelly Isola every Monday for insight into a world that works. Explore what other ministries, churches, and centers are doing to make a positive difference on the planet. Engage in spirited dialogue with local and global leaders who are creating positive change. Dive deeply into spiritual principles that support you in being the Spirit of God in action, whether in your home, community, church, or worldwide. Call in to explore Unity principles put into action in real-life situations by people like you. A World That Works with Reverend Deborah Olive and Kelly Isola. Every Monday, right here on Unity FM, the voice of an awakening world.
Unity FM, the voice of an awakening world.
You've been listening to Design Your Life with Reverend Kevin Ross and friends. Call in and sound off on today's topic or get live coaching for your pressing question toll free at 1-888-346-9194. Once again, that's 1-888-346-9194. Now, back to Design Your Life.
We're today with Michael Bernard Beckwith. He is the author of the best-selling book, Spiritual Liberation, Fulfilling Your Soul's Purpose. He's also the spiritual director of the Agape International Spiritual Center. Just before we went to break, we were listening to his lovely wife, Ricky Byers Beckwith. Got my tongue twisted there with all the B's. And she was performing a song entitled Love. You've got to check all of them out on www.agapelive.com and find out how you can get more information and participate in this groundswell of consciousness that they are bringing to our planet. Well, not to be outdone, it's not enough to have the greatest spiritual center in the country, on the planet, Agape International, and then, have the blessing of Larry King and Oprah Winfrey and then a best-selling book, that he sneaked a CD in on top of that, but now he's into the movies. Tell us a little bit about your latest DVD release, Spiritual Liberation.
You named it. It's called Spiritual Liberation. It is loosely based upon the book, the teachings of the book, and basically it is a day in the life of myself, Ricky, the community, beginning at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning all the way to I go to bed at night. So in this particular movie, you see me and Ricky waking up, doing what we do in the morning, the meditation, the making of the Almighty Green Drink, working on the song. Matter of fact, the song we were working on in the movie is the love song, walking the dogs, and then going to Agape. Mm-hmm. And the sermon that I did is in the movie, and then there's a dinner scene where we actually are dialoguing about spiritual liberation. So the teaching is given in a nonlinear way. Yes. It's many of the points are made by other people in the movie, as well as myself, and then there are special additions, bonus features that have like 8 songs and interviews by people like Pete Carroll, the head coach of USC, who comes to Agape, and Jan Van Zandt, and other people like that.
Lisa Nichols.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lisa Nichols and Reverend Carol Ward and Reverend Coco Stewart and a number of folks. My mother.
Yes,
and
a mother
kids,
and father.
My son and my daughter.
And your son and daughter are hilarious at the end of it. They're having a lot of fun at the outtakes.
Right, and they don't even. And what's funny about that, they didn't know they were being taped. And so a lot of that is actually like this real honest, not knowing they're being taped. Even though they did do a bona fide interview, they used some of it, but they used a lot of the outtakes. And
what I was very impressed with is that how able people were to connect with you. And people, when they look at spiritual teachers, they think that we are somewhere levitating 24 hours a day, and we come down from this mountain, and then we just emanate from our levitated state. We don't eat, we don't shower. Well, I hope they think we shower, but there's this seeming disconnect that people have, and what you were able to show was some of the work that is involved in the spiritual practice and the spiritual life.
Absolutely, and that was one of the reasons why we did it that way. Mm-hmm. So we actually see, here is Michael Bernard Beckwith. Here's his home. Here's where he lived. Here's his wife, who he was.
And that wasn't a studio. That was your real home. I've been in that home, and I remember that couch by the piano in particular. Where I crashed one night.
Right.
Yeah.
There's the real piano. There's the real green shake. There's the real kitchen. Here are real dogs. Mm-hmm. This is what we do. This is how we live our life. Mm-hmm. And so, Mickey Willis, who is the director of the feature, he really wanted to help bring that out as well. A nonlinear film that because there's so many films out there where it's just like interview, and many people just being interviewed. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And there's nothing wrong with that, but we wanted to go out the box a little bit and just try a whole other genre. And so people are trying to name that genre now because different people have seen it and they're blown away by it. And so they like this particular genre of introducing you to the man or the woman. The teaching is still there. But those people that are in my living room having dinner, those are people that I know. I mean, they really are members of my community. We really have conversations like that on the phone and throughout the course of the week. So there was nothing scripted about the movie.
Yeah.
All we did was shot the scene.
And here's life. Here's my life. And, I have to give you a lot of credit. I love the piece where you and Ricky BB are walking the dogs, and you're just having a conversation, and you're modeling what two very powerful people in partnership can co-create, can bring to form without ego, without, competition. It was just a sweet cooperation. What's your secret, Rev?
Well, I think we both are aware that any conflict that occurs is in our own mind. And so we always are working on ourselves, first and foremost, to bring the best that we have to the relationship. And we're not seeking to extract happiness or something from each other. We're seeking more and more to bring it to each other. So I think that's and we're both truth students. Ricky is an avid student, and she has a high practice of. She's always growing, and I'm always growing. So, the relationship keeps growing because we're both seeking to grow. And I think that when you look at the history of relationships, all the way from when institution of marriage, which was a man-made thing, that had something to do with property and the passing on of property and the bringing on of children and carrying an individual's last name and those type of things. And now it has evolved because we don't need to, that particular paradigm of marriage is not as, it doesn't fit now.
Yeah, it's not as sustainable.
It's not sustainable, and we have 7 billion of us on the planet, so there has to be another reason for coming together. And the reason people need to come together at this point is to really support each other in their growth, to live their fulfillment of what's in their soul.
Now,
so
going
when you
back
have that, and also when the foundation is that you really like each other and you really love each other, it makes that easier, you see.
Yeah.
So people
going back to the book now for a minute, I was talking about this Sunday. One of the points in the book was that when you were talking about signs for transformation, when you're kind of wanting to check in to see if you are really transforming, if you're on the transformational path, one of the signs is that you have a high gratitude for the people that help you grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not resisting them because they can't push your buttons, but kind of owning a sense of high gratitude.
Well, there's gratitude and appreciation for everything that helps your soul unfold, whether that is a challenge or whether that's a dynamic appreciation. And the idea is when an individual really becomes a truth student, then they know that they're really on the planet to grow, to unfold. That's what creates the bliss and the ecstasy. Bliss, as I teach, is really a byproduct of the activation of our potential. So anything that comes into our life that helps us activate our potential, we have high appreciation for it. So we're not trying to run away from challenges or conflict. We're basically running to the activation of our soul. So whatever helps that, we're happy about it, even if it doesn't feel good in the moment.
And I think the important thing for people to get is a paradigm shift in that we're not here to get anything from life, but we're here to evolve our souls.
That's it.
And when that shift takes place, then you look at the world a whole different way, and welcome. You're a welcoming space for people's feedback. You're a welcoming space because, as I told them Sunday, I said, bring it on. Whatever it is, bring it on because it's only going to evolve what has been involved.
Absolutely.
In me.
Absolutely. And this is where the maturity, I think, of the New Thought movement is now starting to come to. There's always been teachers at this level, but as far as a movement, it's now maturing, so that we're embracing the evolution of the soul. We're embracing service. We're embracing planetary citizenship. We're embracing a global heart consciousness. We're embracing this, whereas before we were using the principles, to basically, get our relationships together, get our body together, get our money together, having prosperity, basically having a nice life, which is nothing wrong with that. But it's part of the evolutionary trail that we're on. We're coming back to the awareness that you seek first the kingdom of heaven. You seek first the evolution of your soul. You seek first being the best that you can be, and these other things are added. So
I call this the spiritual order of operation.
There you go.
Yeah.
So this is what's happening. So I see a big shift that is occurring just across the board, and I was seeking to language that, and that's basically the where Agape has been from the beginning. I can remember when I started Agape a number of years ago, people would say things like, some of the veterans would say that my community would, always be about, 50 people, would not be that large, but it would be a very deep mystical teaching, because I wasn't that interested in trying to help people get their Mercedes. I was trying to help people get the Mercedes heart, the Mercedes soul.
Hold that thought, Reverend Michael. We've got to take a break. We're talking to Michael Bernard Beckwith. He's the author of the new best-selling book, Spiritual Liberation, Fulfilling Your Soul's Purpose. This has been delicious. We're going to have more when we come back.
Exploring our oneness with Spirit and each other. Unity FM.
This program is brought to you in part by Unity Southeast Church in Kansas City, Missouri. Online at www.unitysoutheast.org.
Step inside my light to embrace the infinite.
Somewhere, tucked away in the Unity Library archives in Unity Village, Missouri, you can find a secret treasure. They are the scripts from Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore's early days on broadcast radio. The teachings of Unity's founders, almost 100 years old. Now, for the first time in history, you can hear them through the power of the Internet. Join Bob Brock every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, for Unity Classic Radio, Words from Our Past. Discover the wisdom of Charles Fillmore's talks and of other Unity radio speakers read on the air again. Call in your comments and questions as Bob and his special guests revisit Unity radio talks of the past, along with historical background from the early days of the Unity movement. That's Unity Classic Radio, Words from Our Past, every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on Unity FM, the voice of an awakening world.
Providing insight and resources for your spiritual journey. Unity FM.
You're listening to Design Your Life with Reverend Kevin Ross and friends. Call in with your questions and comments for real-time coaching and conversation committed to inspiring and empowering you to design and live the life of your dreams. Call us now, toll-free, at 1-888-346-9194. We now return to Design Your Life.
'Cause the universe just wants me to say it.
Over the break, we were talking with Michael Bernard Beckwith. He is the author of the new best-selling book, Spiritual Liberation, Fulfilling Your Soul's Potential. And he was just sharing with me something that I think is profound. And tell him about the beach ball effect.
Well, I've taught over the years that the effort that it takes to get something is the same effort that it takes. You're going to have to keep it. And I call it the beach ball effect. In other words, if you're manipulating and trying to get things in life without a shift of consciousness, you're going to have to continue to use that same amount of energy to keep it. It's much like having a beach ball. And if you use a tremendous amount of energy to keep that beach ball underwater, and of course the beach ball is full of air, you're going to have to use the same amount of energy to keep it underwater because its natural tendency is to float up. Mm-hmm. In the same sense, if you're manipulating and trying to get things in life without shifting your awareness, then you're going to have to use a tremendous amount of willpower to keep whatever it is that you get because you don't have it by right of consciousness. When you grow, when you transform, when you become more yourself, when you activate your potential, when you have the spiritual realization that, like the lilies of the field consciousness that Jesus the Christ spoke about, then you're not efforting to keep what comes into your life. It comes into your life as a natural correspondent to your state of consciousness. And you live without anxious thought, without worry, without trying to get. You live seeking to let, to allow. It's a whole different way of being on the planet.
You know, now, for those of you who are listening and you say, well, you know, Reverend Michael, that's easier said than done. Let me just suggest something for you to that'll support you in this practice. You have the visioning process. Is that what it's called?
Yes, I teach the life visioning process.
Yes.
And by the way, it's from last I heard, it made me the #1 author at The Sounds True.
Wow.
Because people really have been using the life visioning process. And the life visioning kit has just been released a couple of weeks ago.
That's what I'm referring to, yes.
And so, that's what I teach.
Well, I want you guys to consider getting your own copy of this life visioning kit, because if I have personally worked with this very issue, how to shift from, a sense of desperation to a sense of allowing, and he talks to you about this in the Life Visioning Kit. And it's like having him there in person coaching you through this process. And you want to get the full kit with all 6 CDs in it.
Right, the 6 CD carries the whole teaching and the whole evolutionary paradigm from dealing with the 4 stages of spiritual growth, development, and unfoldment.
Yes. And so you have the advantage of being able to play this over and over again and in your car and as you're at home, but something to really work with, because I know that sometimes we don't make this quantum leap overnight, but you can have something to practice so that you can kind of turn the corner in your life and where you're not moving against the current, but the current is pushing you. And it's a beautiful experience to have when it's just all flooding in, And you'll reach that state if you work with this practice, the Life Visioning Kit, and I'm sure it's also available at agapelive.com.
Absolutely. It's available everywhere now. You'll see it at Amazon, you'll see it at Barnes & Nobles, and, of course, Agape Live.
And see, that's a correspondent of Michael's consciousness everywhere.
That's funny.
That's just a new core. That's going to be a part of your name, Michael Everywhere Beckwith. Omnipresent. But that's a part of what's happening when you become the star that you are and really release that. You cannot prevent the rays from hitting everywhere.
Yeah, and you know what? I love the whole analogy around the sun rays, because each of us are like rays of the sun. We're emanations of the presence of God, and we're necessary because the only way you can understand the nature of the sun is through the sunbeam. The sunbeam carries the luminosity and the heat, and without the radiant of the sunbeam, you don't see the nature of the sun. And in the same way, we are radiance of God. We're emanations of God. And without us, God is not visible here, you see. So we're necessary, which is why we say in the song, God needs us to shine its light. As an individualized expression of the Most High, we are necessary to reveal the intelligence and the beauty and the love and the generosity and the total givingness of the Spirit. So it's not that we're praying to God to give us something. We are praying that we may release what God has already given us as a radiant, resplendent image and likeness of the Spirit.
Yeah, and that becomes the fun of life. That becomes the dance. That becomes the bliss of living, because and you are such a great example of this. How else can I reveal another dimension of God into visibility. How else can I express myself? One of my talents is decorating. You know, I like to take spaces and make them beautiful, and I've done it as a hobby. And most recently, you know, I sent one of the photographs of one of the spaces into a magazine, and they're like, "Man, you know, do you have any more pictures? This is good," you know, and it's fun for me. It's no struggle, no effort. It's just one of the gifts that gets revealed when I'm allowing myself to be used in this way.
And when you're doing that, there's a level of joy that you release. You're happy as you are expressing your dimension.
Yes. Well, we've got one other thing I want to share with our listeners, and that is your annual conference. And I believe it's going to be in Atlanta, the Revelations of the Spirit Conference in Atlanta, yes?
Absolutely. May 28th through the 31st, Atlanta, Georgia. Powerful conference. You know, we'll have a Daniel and Brinkley there with us. We'll have a number of individuals that are going to come and share the word, surrounded by the sound of Agape, and just creating, just being involved in this evolutionary thrust to become more ourselves. It is a powerful transformational conference, and I think it's one of the best in the nation, not simply because it's ours. But the way it's conducted, it's like a 3 or 4 day workshop. Mm-hmm. So you have mentors on the couch where after an individual speaks, they don't just leave. They actually stay there, and people interact and ask questions, and we have processes where people can embody what was just talked about. And very, very powerful. And people should sign up because, you know, last year, when we were in D.C., it sold out. Last year it was filled to capacity. It is something that people come to from all around the world.
And this is another way for those of us who want to get a taste of the Agape consciousness that is unfolding rapidly throughout our world, to be in that energy field. And the networking is beyond, because you're in a community of like-minded individuals that you may bump into that person who's going to fund your book, or you may be the new author that this publishing house was looking for. Whatever it is, the divine connections will take place at Revelations, and it's going to be in Atlanta. Is there a special website for that, or just
they can go right to agapelive.com and register immediately?
Okay, register immediately. You've been invited by the man himself. Hey, nothing like a personal invitation to get it said and done, and you heard it here on Design Your Life with Rev Kevin Friends. We've got about a minute left in our program. Michael, it has been, as Les Brown would say, a plum-pleasing pleasure as well as a privilege having you here on our program. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to share with about 1 minute to go?
What I would like to leave people is, I coined a word called plevolving, combination of play and evolving, or evolution. It's there in the book as well. Mm-hmm. And I want people to be aware they don't have to take themselves too seriously on this path, that we don't want to take ourselves too seriously, but we do want to be focused and have a level of resolve around our practice. And we want to do it in the spirit of adventure and the spirit of play. Just as when we were children and we had no attachment to an outcome, we were just playing. And in those moments, there was sheer creativity flowing through us. If we can enter into our prayer life, our life of service, our life of study, from the consciousness of adventure and play, we will find ourselves growing by leaps and bounds, because the expectation that we often have will not get in the way of how the universe will flow through us. So I say, play-volve.
Play-volve. What a great way to close. Again, thank you so much, Reverend Michael, for being on our program. For more information about all of the wonderful things, the book, the conference, the DVD, everything, visit him online at www.agapelive.com, and I'm sure we'll have more to share with you about Reverend Michael in the future. Join us next week when my guest will be Mark Victor Hansen. He's going to be on the program sharing with you how to establish your publishing empire in times like these. It's going to be a great program. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next week, design a life worth having. God bless.
The universe just wants me to say yes, to live my dreams and be all that.
Thank you for for tuning in to Design Your Life with Reverend Kevin Ross and friends. Join us every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern for more designer life distinctions and inspiration to empower you to design and live the life of your dreams.